Hey everyone, congratulations. We made it to another Wednesday night real estate stream. I'm so glad you can join me. My name is Joe Pareca, and you guys probably know the drill by now. We're going to be talking about some real estate stuff tonight on the stream. And tonight's stream is we're going to be talking about why, especially in the news, we've been hearing about a lot of home buyers who regret their purchase. And obviously, that's not a good thing, right? We're going to be talking about buyer's remorse, why home buyers get buyer's remorse. And we're also going to be talking about how you can avoid the feeling of buyer's remorse by just doing a few things before you actually get to the moment of truth. That is pulling the trigger and buying a house. So we've got a lot to cover. We have one article, and then we're going to watch a short video clip, and then we have another article to get to. As always, if you guys have any questions or comments, go ahead, pop them in the comments below. I'm happy to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. So even if it's not directly related to the topic of the stream this evening, I'm still happy to hear what you guys have to say, know your thoughts, and help you where I can when it comes to real estate. Or maybe you just need some life advice and you treasure this middle-aged millennial to give it to you. I'm happy to give you my best advice on anything that's going on. So again, we're going to be talking about some buyer's remorse things, why people maybe regret their home purchase. There's been a lot of statistics in the news recently talking about upwards of 80% of home buyers that regret their purchase, which to me is pretty crazy because purchasing a home is a pretty momentous occasion. It's a pretty monumental event. It's a huge accomplishment, but at the same time, I can understand because it's probably the biggest purchase that you're ever going to make in your life. And I don't know if you guys have felt this, but feeling the feeling of buyer's remorse or purchasing regret, even when it's some small like household appliance or consumer electronic, it's not a good feeling, right? Like you feel like, oh man, I paid too much, I didn't buy the right thing, I shouldn't, I can't afford this at all, like I don't even need this at all. Like those are all kind of steps of the buyer's remorse thing. And this topic is really kind of interesting to me specifically because I actually went to school I got my degree in international business with an emphasis in marketing. And so the psychology of consumers and also sellers has always been something that's really interested me. So talking about, why buyers have buyer's remorse or why consumers regret their purchase is always, kind of an interesting topic. So that's what we're going to be talking about. We have one article from the Washington Post, and then we have a news clip off of YouTube, and then we have an article from Bankrate. And Bankrate, it's actually an outlet that I really like. They usually give a lot of really good money tips. It's kind of basic information, but it's also good. Not everybody knows the basics of finance and credit cards and mortgages and banking and things like that. So Bankrate has a really good article that has 16 first-time homebuyer mistakes to avoid. And I actually feel like the articles that are like mistakes to avoid are almost a little bit better than like, oh, tips you need to know type of stuff. Because, obviously, having tips is good, but what you really want is you want to avoid the mistakes that others have faced. So we're going to be talking about how to avoid that buyer's regret, that buyer's remorse that people are starting to feel when they purchase real estate. And there's a couple different reasons for that. And we'll get into them. Partially, it's because, over the last almost 5 years now, I can't believe that in March, it'll be 5 years since the COVID pandemic, which is kind of crazy to me. Since the COVID pandemic started, not since it like ended. I don't even know, like, when did it officially end? I don't know. We kind of just gave up on it, but it'd be 5 years in March since the COVID pandemic started. And really, when COVID set in and the few months after that, the real estate market completely flipped on its head, it's completely turned upside down, and it hasn't gotten much better. And when people were buying homes during these frenzied markets, what we saw people that were making bad decisions. They were purchasing properties that they shouldn't have purchased, and therefore they had some regret. So this really, really hot market that is kind of forcing people to make fast decisions or maybe decisions they haven't fully thought through. That's one of the biggest factors leading to the home buyer regret. And then obviously, in addition to that, they're paying a ton of money. and with interest rates that are higher than what we've seen in the last about 15 years or so, well, 10 years or so. So let's get right on into it. That's the one that we want. So here we go. We're going to dive in from the Washington Post, and we are going to be talking about how to avoid buyer's remorse when purchasing your home. Find a home that makes you happy, pay attention to your budget, including maintenance costs and future needs. And that's a really, really big one. We kind of talked about this on last week's stream about how, buyers, they often look at, their monthly payment and they think, okay, I can afford this. We can afford the house. They don't realize that maintenance costs can be expensive. And also, too, that monthly payment that makes up your mortgage doesn't stay the same forever. And it can really change based on where you live and where the property is located. Varies from county to county, but mostly state to state. So all of those things, kind of go into possibly leading people down the path of home buyer regret. And again, that's not a good thing. We don't want people to regret a purchase, and especially a purchase as large as a home, right? It's not like, oh, I regret purchasing this meal for dinner, like I didn't like it. Whatever, you can eat dinner tomorrow, right? Well, if you end up buying a house and you regret that purchase, it's a little bit harder and much more expensive to unwind or get out of. So let's dig on in. Okay, so again, this is from September 21st of 2024. So just about 3 weeks ago or so. So pretty current. And again, from the Washington Post, loving a house too much can lead to trouble. Barbara Sheeler had clients last year who fell for a $700,000 house in Herndon, Virginia, and bought it, despite her advice, before getting a professional opinion about repair costs. Already, in the first two sentences of this article, it's kind of setting it up for a failure. And very clearly, there's two major things that happened here that I've seen that are pretty obvious, that are pretty good indicators of why these consumers might regret their purchase. Number one, they didn't listen to their real estate agent. I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here for a moment, so please just entertain my tangent. As a real estate professional that's been doing this for over 11 years now, I think. Gosh, I need to count. At least a decade. As a real estate professional that's been doing this for over a decade, I can't tell you how many times I've advised clients and friends and family about what they should do or what my professional advice is. And I can't tell you how many times I've had to look me in the eye and go, no, we're not going to do that. Okay, well, what do I know? So, just because you don't like what the professional advice is doesn't mean that it's bad or wrong, right? So first and foremost, they went against their professional advice of their real estate agent, which I try to tell people, how many, and obviously everybody's different, but on average, right? The average person, the average consumer might buy 3 homes in their entire life. I mean, and if you think about it, we probably all know people that have lived in the same home for 35 years, right? Like, you might think about like your mom or your grandma or an uncle or something like that, where it's like, hey, we moved in 1984 and we've never left, or we moved in 91 and we've never left. And hey, you know what? When the time comes that you do need to sell or buy, guess what? Just because you've bought a home before or you own a home now doesn't mean you know how to buy one or sell one. And that's exactly why you need, people find trusted real estate agents. It's to trust the advice that they give. So first problem here, they didn't listen to their real estate professional. The second issue is the real estate professional gave very good advice about getting professional opinions and advice about specific repair costs. And I can't tell you how many times this happens where, you have a home inspection and there's some items that come up and buyers want to know, okay, well, how much is this going to cost? Like, is it $2,000 or is it $20,000 to fix this thing? And as an agent, I can guide them a little bit. I can give them some ballpark numbers, but I'm not a contractor, right? I'm not a painter. I'm not an architect. I can't give precise numbers about what some of these things might cost, because quite honestly, that's not my area of expertise, and I might be giving them bad information. And that's obviously the last thing that I want to do. So that's the second mistake. They not only, number one, they didn't listen to the agent, but number two, they didn't follow up and get trusted advice from local trades professionals about the issues that they were kind of aware that the home had. Uh, a home inspection had identified a number of problems, said Sheeler, a real estate agent with Coldwell Banker Realty in Alexandria, Virginia. The red flag, she said, included a small, moldy looking crack in the basement and a drip behind a shower wall. And the ground, she said, needed a French drain because water would pool up close to the home. All right, so right off the rip, like these things in this paragraph that the homeowner found, let me tell you, I just had a home inspection today with some really great clients and some friends of mine, helping them navigate through a home purchase. And it, I'll tell you, every single home inspection I've done, uh, there's issues on the summary page. When I say issues, they could be small, they could be large, but there's always something. There's always some notes that the inspector makes. I've never had a single home ever in my career that where the inspector left and just said, "There's nothing wrong. I have nothing to note." The closest I've come is a home that was just immaculately maintained. It was actually an older home. It was a vintage home built in the 30s, and it was owned by an engineer who took extremely good care of the home. And the inspector only had about 4 items to note, which is very, very small. Usually it's a list about a page or a page and a half is pretty normal. So back to our article, this stuff that they're finding, not a big deal. Drainage, that's an important one, and you do want to control that, but that's fixable, right? Like if you really like the home, making a French drain is nothing but like a hole in the ground with some rocks and some gravel. Like it's not that big of a deal. A moldy looking crack in the basement, you know, I'm not a basement person. I'm on the West Coast. I'm out here in the suburbs of LA. We don't really do basements here. So I can't really comment too much on that. A drip behind a shower wall, that's kind of a pain because something's going to have to be opened up. But, it is what it is. It can be fixed, right? So nothing too crazy here. But the fact that they didn't get some professional opinion about what the cost could be that are associated with these repairs, not a good thing. Unfortunately, the buyers moved forward with an offer. Once they moved in, they were confronted by the main items that needed to be addressed and the costs involved, Sheeler said. If you feel there's a potential problem, investigate it further, she said. A professional in the field can tell you how difficult the issue might be and what costs may be involved. And she's 100% correct. They had the home inspection. After they got that home inspection, they absolutely should have consulted a professional. And this is part of the problem with the whole frenzy during the pandemic, which this article is going to talk about a little bit later on. But I don't know that the landscape of what these buyers were dealing with. I don't know if this was a property that was in a desirable area that had only been on the market for a week. Was there 5 offers? Was there 15 offers? Was there 1 offer? There's a lot that goes into it, but hopefully these people had at least 10 days for their home inspection contingency time period. And that time period is basically you telling the seller, hey, for the first 10 days of escrow, I have the right to have a home inspection at any time. Of course, a time that is conducive to the home and to the seller, but I have the right to have a home inspection, and then I have the right to have any other inspections that I deem necessary, as long as they're not destructive to the property. So for instance, you can't do an inspection where you go, oh, I need to open this wall to see behind it. You can't do that. But if it's non-destructive, you can absolutely have people come and take a look around. And what they should have done is these buyers should have allowed themselves enough time to have that home inspection, and then also potentially invite some tradespeople over after they get the home inspection report. So let's say you have 2 weeks, you have 14 days for your home inspection period, your contingency period. You might have your home inspection on day 5, and then you usually get the report the next day. So by day 6, you've got the report. Well, the report comes back and turns out, there's some electrical issues that you need to look at, right? Well, okay, how much is the electrical issues, or how much are they going to cost to fix? How invasive is it? How hard are they to fix? How important are they? Can I get by with a minor fix, or does it need to be overhauled? All of those things are things that a professional, licensed electrician is really going to be the only person that can answer that. So you want to have enough time in that contingency period to say, hey, you know what? Actually, the inspector found some things. One of the things that I'm most concerned about is some electrical items, and I want to go back with an electrician to give me a quote for what I'm looking at to repair. And I have a feeling that maybe that wasn't done. Let's continue on. The experience of buyer's remorse is particularly common among buyers who purchased homes at the height of the frenzy created by low mortgage interest rates and limited inventories between mid 2020 and mid 2022. Basically just what I was saying. For those 2 years, it was crazy. It was a feeding frenzy. And unfortunately, buyers had to act very, very quickly. And sometimes when you act quickly, well, you make some bad mistakes. Home buyers engaged in bidding wars often waived contingencies such as home inspection and an appraisal to make an offer more enticing to sellers. However, they also lost the protection those contingencies offer. Um, and I'm glad that they talked about this because waiving contingencies is something that a lot of real estate agents will advise, but it can be very, very tricky and it can be very risky and it can expose the clients to a lot of risk, which is not good. I never, ever, ever would encourage a buyer to waive their inspection contingency. You know what? Let me walk that back a little bit. I'll say 99 times out of 100. The one time out of 100 where I'd say, okay, you know what? If you don't want to have an inspection, I understand. Is if I'm working with one of my investor clients, which I don't typically work with a lot of investor clients. I really only have like one or two that are the types like, hey, we can buy this house and we can totally rehab it and sell it or rent it or whatever. Um, and in that situation, having a traditional home inspection is really not needed because most of the time, number one, those investors are pretty savvy. They know their numbers. They know what they're looking at. They've done this before. They know how much things cost. And number two, um, they they uh, they already know that they're going to buy it for so cheap that whatever cost they incur, they're still going to make their money. So that's really the only time that I am feel okay submitting an offer on behalf of a client that does not have an inspection contingency. And even then, it's not rare for this investor to include an inspection contingency because it protects them as a buyer in great depth. So submitting an offer without a home inspection contingency is kind of foolish, and you better be really certain about knowing what you're looking at, which can sometimes be hard to do when you only go to the open house or you go see it once or twice before you make an offer. So I would not advise that. Not having an appraisal contingency, that's another semi-risky one. I don't feel it's as risky as an inspection for a couple different reasons, which I'm not going to get into now. We could do a whole live stream on contingencies and what they are and how they protect you and how they can work to your advantage or disadvantage. But the most important one by far is that inspection contingency for a lot of different reasons. This is crazy. Most buyers, 82%, had regrets about their purchase, according to a recent national survey by Clever Real Estate, a matching service that connects real estate agents and home buyers. The most common complaints were that the purchase cost too much, that repairs and maintenance cost too much, and the mortgage rate was too high. In addition, some buyers reported that they bought a home that didn't meet their needs. Okay, so I'm going to pick this apart a little bit. So the most common complaint is that the purchase cost was too much. Okay, so I don't know what they mean when they say the purchase cost. I would only go out on a limb and assume that they're talking about the purchase price, not the actual costs of purchasing, like escrow and inspection and title fees and things like that. I think they're talking about the actual cost of the property. Well, okay, you know what the cost is before you sign the offer. You know what you're going to have to purchase the property out before you open escrow. So to me, this is kind of one of these things where it's like, I mean, are you really regretting the purchase because you really feel like you paid too much, or would you just like to pay less? Like when I go to the store, right, or when I go to buy gas and I have to pay $4.50 a gallon for gas, and I buy the gas, I don't regret buying the gas. I just wish I could have paid less to buy it, but I still need the gas. I still want the gas, and I'm still going to use it. So I think I would just be curious to know a little bit more about what that means. Oh, the purchase cost, it costs too much. Again, you already know what it's going to be before you buy the home. So if you thought it was too much, why did you continue on with the purchase? So I kind of feel like this regrets, I don't know, kind of whiny, if you will. And I know I get it. I can already hear people in the chat right now. I understand what they're saying, that like, hey, houses are really expensive and there's a big burden to buy them. And I don't want to minimize how much money it is to buy a house these days. But again, you use your noggin, right? Use your noggin. You know how much the home costs before you buy it. If you think it's too much, don't buy it, right? Hey, Maddie's in the chat. How's it going, Maddie? Thanks for hanging out. Good to see you. Hope you had a great week, and I hope your Wednesday's going well. Uh, so the next thing, repairs and maintenance cost too much. Okay, this one again, I kind of get. Maintenance is a hard one to game, right? But I've got a tip for the maintenance thing, right? For maintenance, we don't know how much maintenance is going to be, but you can get an idea of what utilities costs, and you can get an idea of what property tax costs. So you can really get a good idea of what your costs are going to be again before you even open escrow, you know, any of those things. You know what those costs are. Maintenance, you don't know when something's going to break, right? Even if your home inspection comes back great and the home inspector says, hey, your home looks great, everything is really good, I don't see any major problems, normal wear and tear for this age of the home. Okay, great. Well, that doesn't mean that you won't get a pipe that leaks the day after you close escrow, or your dishwasher won't break, or your heater goes out, or whatever. Like, all those things can happen. So I get it. I understand that maintenance side of things is kind of a guessing game. Repairs, we talked about repairs. You can get ahead of that a little bit. And mortgage rates were too high. Well, I think 100% of home buyers would agree that mortgage rates are too high. So I don't think that's a unique complaint just to home buyers at all. All right, Maddie. These days, I would always include a contingency relating to homeowners insurance costs. Yes, Maddie, I can't agree with you more. And in fact, you bring up a good point, because recently, as of about July of this year, July of 2024, at least here in California, I know you're in California. I know that you're in northern. Obviously, I'm here in California, so I can't speak for the rest of the nation because every state uses different uh, contracts and documents. But here in California, homeowners insurance is now an official contingency. It's officially been added to the contingencies list in a California residential purchase agreement. So it now has the same protections as a home inspection, as disclosures, as preliminary title, as loan, and as appraisal. We also now have homeowners insurance. So if that contingency still applies, then if you cannot get homeowners insurance or affordable homeowners insurance, then you can back out of the deal as a buyer. And that's a very, very good idea. And before we had that contingency in place to protect buyers when it comes to homeowners insurance, I would make my home buyer clients find their insurance in the first 10 days of escrow, because then if they couldn't get insurance, we could use the inspection contingency as sort of that, like, kind of like get out of jail free card, right? So we could say, hey, you know what, something came back on the inspection we didn't like, but in reality, it's because my buyers couldn't get homeowners insurance, right? Luckily, that never happened, but that's how I kind of protected my clients and kept them in a good position. So, but you're exactly right. These days, with all the homeowners insurance stuff, and especially, if you didn't catch last week's stream, you need to go back to my channel and watch it, because we talk all about homeowners insurance, property taxes, and the hidden fees and costs that are associated with those two items, which can really eat into the affordability. So, Maddie, that's a great point. We tell our clients the same thing we tell our kids to protect them. Make good decisions, said Hans Weidler, an associate broker with Compass in DC. The only bad decision is to buy a house you're not excited about, because it's costly to sell it quickly when you're unhappy. We tell our clients the same thing we tell our kids to protect them. Make good decisions. I wish it was easy. Don't you just wish? I'm not a parent, but I'm sure out there people that are watching that are parents, or have either nieces or nephews, or whatever. Wouldn't it be great if the kids just like listen to you, right? Make good decisions, okay? You'll be fine. Just make good decisions. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way, and it doesn't work that way also sometimes with some clients, and they don't make good decisions. But this guy's right. Mr. Weidler is correct, where it is expensive to sell a house quickly if you need to, and it's going to eat into your profit. It's going to eat into a little bit of your bottom line, or a decent amount of your bottom line, I should say. One couple who worked with Emily Lurie, a real estate agent with Long and Foster Real Estate in Park Potomac, Maryland, insisted on a home inspection even when most buyers waived them. Bingo. She's very smart. This buyer is very smart. She probably didn't get the house, but she probably doesn't have buyer's regret. It hurt when they lost a bidding war due to buyers who had offered less money but waived the home inspection. A few weeks later, Lurie said, "We found out the property had a foundation issue, and the successful buyers have spent a lot of time and money to try and fix it. Sometimes a case of buyer's remorse turns out to be short-lived." So there you have it. Like, that's a really good example of of exactly why you want to hold firm to your inspection contingency. And just so you know, people out there that are thinking about buying a property, home inspections cover a wider range of things. I'm not going to tell you exactly what home inspections do cover in every case because every inspection is difficult. You can pay for different levels of, inspection thoroughness and packages and all these things. But even a basic home inspection should cover the foundation, so crawling under the house if it's on a raised foundation, examining and inspecting the basement if there's a basement under the house. Inspectors will also go into the attic and crawl space above the ceiling, between the ceiling and the roof, to look for anything in there, as well as obviously checking the general grounds, operating all the appliances, testing all the outlets, testing light fixtures, testing the HVAC, all of those things. So a very basic home inspection would have probably saved those buyers a lot of time and a pretty big headache and a lot of money. So avoid overpaying. Okay, this seems like a pretty obvious one, right? Don't pay too much for what you want to buy. In 2021, Lurie worked with buyers who were determined to live in a specific neighborhood with hardly any homes for sale. They found what they thought was the perfect house, renovated the way they wanted with a two-car garage, Lurie said. I told them everyone would want this house, so they would likely need to remove all contingencies and make a strong offer. I explained the risks of doing that. So, if this agent, if Ms. Lurie did actually say, hey, you need to submit an offer with no contingencies, which is a very risky proposition. Again, that's something that even I've never done. I've had clients say, hey, I don't need a loan contingency because I'm already approved. I don't need an appraisal contingency. I'm fine if it's going to appraise. And I've had clients reduce their home inspection period down, but never waive it. That's just very, very risky. And if Ms. Lurie, the agent, did explain all of the pros and cons and risks associated with removing those contingencies, then okay, fine. But I really, really hope she did a good job explaining to the buyers what risk that runs them. And it would be very smart of her to get that in writing, that she did explain it so that she can say, hey, I explained this to you guys. If something comes back to bite you in the tushy, don't say I didn't warn you. The house was listed at 899,000. Initially, Lurie's buyers wanted to offer 1.4 million, 500K over the asking price. Wow, these people are aggressive because they were determined to have it. But Lurie explained the offer would be very high for the community. They offered 1.2 million, so still 300K over the asking price. That's crazy. I would. Where is this? I want to see. Say where she worked. I think it said right. Maryland. Oh my gosh. So maybe that's like by DC. I don't know. Anybody in the chat that knows where let's see, where Park Potomac, Maryland is, I'd love to know. Because boy, these houses are selling for way over the asking price. So they offered 1.2 million. I told them it was still high for the community, but it was their decision, Lori said. 2 weeks later, they called me because they were upset and disappointed. Oh no. Their new neighbors told them that they had paid too much for the house and they would never be able to sell their own houses for that much money. Okay, well, I understand why they might have some remorse, but like again, those are decisions that you made that again you went against the advice of your professional, your trusted professional, and then 2 weeks later, when the person next door told you you messed up, then that resonates with you. I mean, I feel bad that these people, feel like they have this buyer's remorse, and obviously you don't want that, but at the same time, they made the decision to spend a lot of money more. I mean, way more. We're not talking 50K over or even 100K over. I mean, we're talking 300K over. That's crazy. I mean, like I don't want to say they deserve their buyer's remorse because I don't want anybody to be remorseful about buying a home. But yikes, I'm not surprised. There we go. We'll put it that way. I'm not surprised that they're remorseful over their very, very, very expensive purchase. In addition, the two-car garage was too small for their cars, and they hadn't noticed that it had two doors, which made it impossible for them to squeeze even one car inside. Okay, there's no excuse for this, right? There's no excuse for this. How do you not know that your cars don't fit in the garage? You can measure your cars and then you can measure the garage. At the home inspection, you could have said, open this garage door up. I'm pulling my car in. I want to see if it fits in here. And I've had clients that do that before. They have big SUVs or big trucks. And I tell them, like, if I'm aware that they have a large vehicle, hey, is your vehicle going to fit in this garage? Do you need to measure? Are you going to need to modify it? And obviously these people didn't do this. What's even funnier is that on the $900,000 home that they were buying for 1.2 million that they wanted to spend 1.4 million dollars for. They didn't even notice that the garage door had two doors. So it was a two-car garage, but it had two like single doors and then like a little like some house in the middle and then a single door, right? So obviously you don't have as much room because you have two small doors instead of one big door. All you had to do was like look at the front of the house, like look at the photos of the listing, and you would have known that it has two doors. And that's something that I point out to my buyers. Hey, this two-car garage has two doors instead of one door. That might limit you on what you can get in here. So just be aware. And also on top of that, it's not that hard to delete to go to a one door. You just cut that part out of the house, put on your garage door. There you have it. So this is this is this is stupid. This is trivial. This is anecdotal. I told them they could fix the garage pretty easily and that eventually the house would be worth more. Both things true. Lurie said they made a good decision, just not a perfect decision. Well, hey, can't blame them. Most people don't make perfect decisions. Since then, all the houses in the neighborhood have increased in value, and now the couple have let go of their buyer's remorse. Good, I'm glad. I had a business professor who said that home should bring joy and happiness, not just an investment return, Weidler said. It's a good point. The happiness includes not worrying about your finances all the time. It's not a good buy if you can't go on vacation or enjoy a nice dinner out sometimes. Yep, very wise words to live by. On the other hand, if you are certain that your cash flow will improve because of a promotion, perhaps, or a reduction in household debt, it may be worthwhile to stretch a little for a place you plan to own for at least a decade, Weiler said. And that's true. The longer you're planning on being in a home, the little bit more you can kind of stretch that comfort zone because the longer you plan on being in the home, the more that equity can accrue, the more money that you can make back, and the more comfortable you'll get with those expenses as you adapt to them over time. So that's true. If you're planning on being in a home for 20 or 30 years and it means that you need to stretch your budget a little bit more, that's fine. If you're only planning on staying in the home for 5 to 10 years, then you really want to be careful about the purchase price and how much you're going to stretch because you're going to need to sell it rather quickly and you want to be able to make some money on it. Weidler was the listing agent for a property in Northwest Washington that a couple purchased before deciding that they preferred a different neighborhood. Yikes. They never moved in and they never sold it either, he said. They finally took it off the market when they couldn't sell. Wow, so they bought the home, didn't even move in, realized they don't like the neighborhood. Like, I'm sorry, but like that just seems like maybe you neglected some of the major parts about like the home buying process, which is like doing research on where you want to live and the best neighborhood for you. Again, I don't ever want anybody to feel like they have some remorse, but at the same time, you need to do your own due diligence. You have to take responsibility for your own actions and your own decisions, and hopefully it worked out okay for them. In another situation, Weidler worked with clients who divorced a year after purchasing a home. A great house can't save a bad marriage, Weidler said. Yikes, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. In that case, and one in which buyers had to move unexpectedly for work, a quick sale turned out to be costly. Yep, a good way to lose money on real estate is buy the property and then sell it within about 4 or 5 years. That's a great way to lose money in real estate. Hard to lose money in real estate, but that's a great way to do it. The sellers had to lower the price by at least 10% because mortgage rates were higher, and they didn't have the chance to recoup fees incurred when they purchased the property. While such situations can be unpredictable, Weidler said buyers can talk through how they might deal with anticipated changes. A third floor walk up condo might be great for a young couple, but if they're planning to have a baby, they need to think about how it would work with a stroller and groceries. And that's a great point, right? Like, you have to kind of think a little bit into the future, right? And if you buy a home that's just good for right now, well, when right now changes, could be a problem. Older buyers may want to think ahead about potential mobility issues and buy a home with an elevator or a first floor bedroom, Weidler said. Be prepared. Buyers often complain that homes cost more to operate than expected. A common rule of thumb is to set aside 1% of your home's value annually for repairs and maintenance. This is not a bad rule. That would be $5,000 for a $500,000 home. You may need more than that for an older home or less for a well maintained home in excellent condition. I don't actually really know if there's a correlation between maintenance costs and the price of the home. I think that's a little maybe, I mean, it's good to have some rule of thumb so that people have some idea as to a goal that they should be trying to obtain. But I mean, are the maintenance costs really going to be that much big of a difference between a $500,000 home and a $750,000 home? And also, what if a $900,000 home? What if that home is in downtown LA and it's only a 900 square foot, 2 bedroom, 1 bath home, but it costs $900,000, which those do exist. Well, do you think that home's going to be cost as much to maintain as a home, in San Bernardino or on the outskirts in a suburb that is 700,000, but it's 1,800 square feet and it's 3 bedrooms, 2 baths? No, that home's probably going to be more to maintain. It's bigger. So the whole like going off the price thing, I don't know. Like I said, it's better than nothing, and at least it gives people some idea, rule of thumb to save. And hey, if you save 5K a year for your maintenance and you don't spend it, great. You just saved 5K and you can go on vacation or do something else. Even buyers who have a home inspection can be caught off guard by a fallen tree or a leak. Weiler said, buyers, he said, have to anticipate expenses that lenders don't consider when deciding whether to approve a mortgage. Yep, like we were talking about. You can have an inspection and then 5 days later, you can have a leak, tree fall on your roof, huge problems. Your lender will go over principal, interest, taxes, and insurance payment, but that won't include your utilities, the cost to replace your heating and air conditioning, or even your landscaping, he said. Our advice is to buy the least expensive house that will make you happy. Another very good piece of advice. And to kind of round this out, like when it comes to utilities, landscaping, you can and you should be asking your agent to check with the sellers. Hey, sellers, what's your monthly electric bill like? How much do you spend in water per month? What's the landscaper charge you to come, twice a month and mow the lawn and whatever? And the seller doesn't have to give them to you, but there's a very good chance that they are going to give those costs to you because they're important things to know. And it's not like it's top secret stuff. So that is one thing that you can do to kind of help alleviate some of the stress of, oh my gosh, how much is this home actually going to cost me on top of the principal, interest, and taxes, right? So we're going to switch gears now, and we are going to go to this tab. Okay, so this comes from News Nation on YouTube. Um, and they're talking about home buyer regret creeps in for buyers who purchased homes sight unseen, which was kind of common during the pandemic. And this is from a year ago, but the idea still is obviously relevant. So let's go.
Remember when home sales were so hot, some were buying up real estate sight unseen? Many homeowners have some regrets, and Kelsey has a closer look at these buyer's remorse stories. Kelsey?
Hey, Adrian. Yeah, you know those life lessons that just hurt and cost you a lot of money in the end? Well, that is exactly what the pandemic home buyers we spoke to faced. Now they're using their story to warn others.
Okay, so first off, like buying a home sight unseen, that's like it's like mega risky. During the pandemic, it was kind of understandable. It was just difficult, and people were relocating from all over the place. But still, even then, I had a couple people that I showed homes to virtually. Um, I had a couple people that I showed homes to where I took a very detailed property tour video. I had one client who bought it completely sight unseen, bought a house completely sight unseen, but they had to move to this area for work, and they had a pretty hard deadline, and they felt good about the home based on the way that I presented the information to them, and it actually it worked out okay. And they also had some extra money in the budget to do some repairs and some fixes. So they bought a house that was a little bit more affordable to them that they knew like, hey, if it's not exactly perfect or if it's not in the condition that we think it's in, we can take on the burden of that. And that's the only way that I would recommend buying a house sight unseen is just expect that you're going to have some issues when it comes to unexpected costs.
I feel lied to and ripped off.
Michaela Honeycutt was a first-time home buyer in St. Louis in October of 2020. Not long after moving in with her husband, they started having major plumbing issues.
Toilet paper, sewage. Like anytime we would run the laundry, the amount of water coming from the laundry machine would force what was in the pipes back up into the house.
Honeycutt says the inspection prior to purchasing their home found problems with a sewer pipe underneath the house.
Okay. All right. So we're complaining about having sewer problems in a house that they bought. the stories about sight unseen purchases, I don't know if these people actually made the purchase sight unseen, but you were aware of issues during the home inspection. You were aware that there was a problem with your main sewer line, which, by the way, that's an important thing. That's a big one that can be a costly expense. So you obviously were aware of it. Your home inspector made you aware of it, and now you're complaining that it's a problem. I mean, it sounds like something that should have been addressed. And you'll see when we go through this, they did think that it was addressed, but I'm going to tell you why this is a problem. Here we go.
She says the previous homeowners then agreed to fix it, but she says the work wasn't done properly.
Okay, so that right there. So they found some items during the inspection, or they found an item during the inspection, which was this sewer line that's not doing very good. And they said, well, Mr. Home Seller, we want you to repair that sewer line. Okay, and obviously there's a lot of this story that I don't know. I don't have the information to it. I don't know how this all went down. I don't know anything about the context of the situation. But they said, seller, we want you to fix the sewer line. The main sewer line is typically not something that like you can just like, oh, we'll just fix it up for you. No problem. The main sewer line, the only way to fix a main sewer line that's really bad, that's either broken or deteriorated or rusted or anything like that, is to do one of two things. Number one, you either put a liner, they take this machine and they shove this liner through the pipe and it runs all the way down and goes to the surface, and you basically have a new inside of the pipe, right? So it's like if you like think of a trash bag liner. You take your trash bag, if your trash can has a hole in it and you pour liquid in there, well, it'll leak out. But if you put a trash bag in that doesn't have a hole and you pour liquid in, it holds it, right? Great. So that's the same thing, like a kind of like the way that a sewer liner works. Or the only other option is dig it up and replace it. Both of those options are very expensive. The sewer liner route is a little bit more cost effective than replacing. But just like, oh, we'll fix it for you. It's like, okay, well, like, how was it fixed and how was it done, and is it going to be fixed right? And that's the problem. That's why when you make the request, if you are a buyer and you make a request to have the seller fix something, it's really, really, really crucially important that the terms of that request are that whatever's wrong, like in this case, have the sewer line inspected and repaired by a licensed plumber. That's really important, because you just say fix the sewer line. It's like, okay, well, is Uncle Scotty from across the street, who's really good with a hammer and nails, well, is he going to fix the sewer line? Maybe he doesn't know the first thing about a sewer line. So you can't just say, oh, we're going to fix it. The seller's going to fix it. It's going to be taken care of. Don't worry, it'll be fine. You need to stipulate on the request for repair a licensed contractor, a licensed plumber, a licensed carpenter, a licensed electrician, whatever the problem is. Additionally, the other thing, which I think this is the better route, you have a sewer line that's an issue, call out a plumber. The plumber is going to take a look at it. The plumber's going to say, hey, this sewer line is going to cost you $3,000 to fix properly. As the buyer, don't go to the seller and say, okay, hey, fix it, because again, you don't know how they're going to do it. But as a buyer, you say, you know what, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, it's going to cost $3,000 to fix. I don't want you to deal with having to fix it, right? I'm sure you just want to sell the house. I want to buy the house. We don't need to make this complicated. Give me $3,000. Just give the $3,000 to me. Then after I buy the home, I can go find a plumber and I can get it fixed. This is two things. Number one, it allows you to save a little bit of money because they're going to give you $3,000 back. But number two, and even more importantly, you get to choose who does the work at the house. You get to vet that plumber. You get to vet that contractor. You get to look at their references and referrals, and you finally get to make the choice at who is going to make the fix. Do you want the seller who's already got 1 foot out the door of this house, is just trying to get rid of it, to make the repair? Or do you want yourself to choose who makes the repair? And that's really, really important. So don't just let the seller make the repair. Either ask for money or make it a requirement that they use a licensed tradesperson.
Michaela, how are you feeling about everything right now?
Pretty angry. I'm also very tired. This has been dragging on for a couple of years now. And I'm very frustrated by it. I had to take out a large loan to get the repairs done.
Hanukkah isn't alone. A surveyor of homebuyers who bought a home during the pandemic found 3 out of 4 buyers in 2020 and 2021 have at least one regret about their home purchase. With homes quickly getting
right. So but what are those regrets? I don't want to minimize these people's regrets. I don't want to tell people how they feel, but like, is it a real regret? Like, oh man, I bought this home way too fast because there was so much competition and I jumped into something that I shouldn't have jumped into and now I can't afford it or whatever. Or is it a regret like, I really wish I would have bought a house on the other side of the street or whatever. I wish I would have bought a house that was closer to my favorite hamburger joint. Like, yeah, that's a regret, but not a real honest, monumental regret.
Being snatched off the market. More than 12 million Americans were quick to buy homes during the pandemic, but now they're paying the price. Like Kay Kingsman in Portland, Oregon, who bought her first home in August of 2021.
I was kind of just swept up with everything.
But at move-in day, she says there were already problems with the house.
I noticed the worst smell of my life when I.
Okay, so you didn't notice the worst smell of your life in a home that you bought until the day that you moved in. Okay. I mean, again, that sucks. This is a bad position to be in. You don't want that for anyone. But when you saw the home the first time, did you not smell it? When you went back for the second time, did you not smell it? When you had the home inspection, did the home inspector not make any mention of an odor? Did the appraiser not make a mention of any odor? Did the seller not make any disclosures about why there could be odor? She's going to go on and talk about how it smelled like uh, pet urine. Okay, well, I know here in California, that's a disclosure related item. Like, what did the seller say? Did the seller say no? Okay, they either lied on the disclosure, and we can talk about how to remedy that, or they, they didn't put it down, or they missed it, or they did put it down and you didn't catch it, or your agent didn't catch it and didn't tell you. I'm just wondering how you didn't know until you moved into the property. Now, maybe it was completely sight unseen. Maybe she lived in Rhode Island and she bought a house in Portland. But nonetheless, someone had to go to inspect the property. An agent, even me as an agent, if I had somebody from Rhode Island call me up and say, Joe, I need to buy a house in Claremont or Laverne or San Dimas or Upland or whatever, one of the cities I work, I need to buy a house. I need to buy a house in the next 2 weeks. I have a huge deadline. I got to get out there. There's no way I can come see the house. I need you to find me a 3-bed, 2-bath home under $900,000. Okay, great. Let's go to work. Well, guess what? I'm going to go into those homes. And if I notice a smell, I'm going to say, hey, you know what? The house is great, but it smells like an armpit in here. Like, it's really strong. It's the worst smell of my life, like Miss K in the video here says. Well, I'm going to tell them that. Or I'm going to tell them it smells like there's so much air freshener in here that they're covering something up. And I don't know what it is. But it smells too much of something in here. So this whole thing, kind of interesting.
Stepped in. It was just overwhelming, like cat urine. Everything was just really dirty and like grimy to the point where it was hard to believe someone had lived in this house. I also had to shut off the water for the downstairs bathroom because the toilet was just like draining water.
Okay. I'm not a plumber. I am a homeowner. I am kind of a handy guy. I like to work with my hands a little bit. I don't know. This to me here doesn't seem like a monumental issue. And chances are, if the toilet is leaking, so under this cap is a bolt, and that's what bolts your toilet to the floor so it doesn't move around. Between the toilet and the floor, there's what's called a wax ring seal. It's just a gasket. It's basically just a gasket. And you set the toilet on there, you tighten this baby down, and that gasket smashes and seals, and that's how you don't get water that protrudes or leaks out. Replacing a wax gasket, I think if you have a plumber do it, I think it costs about $100. Or if you do it yourself, it costs you probably about like $15. So again, I don't want to minimize the headache and the issue that this young lady had, but like, this isn't, I don't know. If this is your biggest regret about buying a home, I think you got away actually pretty dang good.
Water out of the bottom.
Kingsman says she's the first in her family to be able to buy a house. She has mixed feelings about the experience.
I'm still very proud of myself that I did it, but I am, I guess, disappointed that I feel kind of taken advantage of.
Yeah.
I don't know why she feels taken advantage of. I mean, and again, there's a lot here that I'm not going to know about, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that I don't know about. I don't know the details and the nuances. She was the one that made the choice to buy that house. She was the one that made the choice to sign. She was the one that made the choice to work with whatever agent she worked with. Like at some point, you have to take personal responsibility for yourself. And you know what? Maybe she is truly the victim in the scenario where maybe she did hire the agent and maybe the agent did go to the house and just didn't say anything. Maybe the agent just glossed over those details. Maybe the home inspector sucked and didn't say, "Hey, your house smells like cat urine." But I find that all very hard to believe, and I find it hard to believe that just nobody saw the house, before it was sold.
Kingsmen disappointed and frustrated like so many buyers during 2020. It was the ultimate seller's market in which buyers were taken advantage of. Get this, a study by Redfin found nearly 2/3 of home buyers made offers on homes they never even saw in person, Adrian.
Okay, I understand that buyers felt like it was working against them, and it was a very heavy seller's market. But that doesn't mean that buyers got taken advantage of. But ultimately, at the end of the day, buyers have a choice to either buy the home or not. No one's got a gun to their head that says you have to buy this house, and if you don't, there's going to be really big problems for you. Like, it's just I do agree that buyers were in a very difficult situation and buyers had to make concessions and buyers had to do things that maybe they normally wouldn't have done if the market was different. But hey, if that's how the market is and you want the commodity and the market's hot, that's what you're going to have to do. I mean, you always have the option to not, but think about it this way. Just I'll leave you guys with this little piece. For these buyers that felt like they got taken advantage of, um, they could have said, "Hey, you know what? I feel like I'm going to take advantage of. I'm just not going to buy a house right now." Well, that's great. Let's just say that was in 2021, and now we're in 2024, 3 years later. Okay. Well, what's happened in 3 years? Prices have gone up even higher in most areas of the country. Interest rates have really not gotten that much better. And on top of that, you probably would have been having to pay rent for 3 years, which, by the way, that rent probably would have increased at least one or two times. So, as a buyer, are you really in a better position now than you were in 2021 or 2022? Probably not. So did those buyers really get taken advantage of? I don't really know. Let's see how this finishes out.
Yeah, I remember those
goodness.
days. Thank you so much, Kelsey. Thank you for watching. Go to
Yeah.
newsnationnow.com.
So, at the end of the day, nobody really wants to have, issues with buyer's remorse or, regretting, purchasing a home. And I understand, I get it. You spend a lot of money and you don't want that. And so let's talk about some ways really quick. We're almost out of time, but we got a little bit of time left. Scratch my ear here. Let's talk about 16 first-time home buyer mistakes to avoid. Here it is. This is from Bankrate, and this was published in May of this year. So we're going to go over this pretty quickly. We're just going to do some key takeaways, and then we're going to hit the bullet points so that you guys have some tips for mistakes that you need to avoid. It's a good idea to get pre-approved for a mortgage before you start looking at homes. A pre-approval will tell you how much home you can afford. This is 100% true. I completely agree. Not only will a pre-approval tell you how much you can afford, but a pre-approval at least gives you the option to make an offer if you see a home that you like. If you don't have that pre-approval, you can't do anything. Keep an open mind when looking at homes and take your time. Don't rush the process or make a decision based on emotion alone. Pandemic buyers, don't rush. Take your time. Understand your loan options and talk to a few lenders about what type of loan might be best for your situation. Don't overlook options like FHA loans, USDA loans, and VA loans. Now, of course, the latter two, USDA and VA, both very good loan products. However, for very specific situations and individuals, obviously not available to everyone. FHA is a program that is pretty much available to everyone, so that can be a good one as well. And yes, you should be talking to a few lenders. Just like anything else in life, if you're going to go buy a car, if you're going to go buy a dishwasher, if you're going to go buy a refrigerator, you need to shop around. You need to take a look at a couple of different models from a couple of different outlets and vendors to figure out who can get you the best deal. And the same goes for loans. Buying your first home can be an overwhelming experience. Whether you're a brand new house hunter or an experienced buyer, you can sidestep potential pitfalls by understanding the basics of home buying and knowing which questions to ask. So number one, looking for a home before applying for a mortgage. When you're buying your first house, It's common to start viewing homes before ever getting in front of a mortgage lender. In today's market, you may find that housing inventory is tight because there's far more buyer demand than affordable homes on the market. So yeah, like we talked about, having that pre-approval, having that pre-qualification letter does do a couple things. Number one, there will be no surprise in how much the house is going to cost you, right? It would be like going to look at a car and going, "Ooh, I really like this brand new BMW. It's $45,000." Okay, well, and the sales guy goes, "Well, how much can you afford?" And you go, "I don't really know. I don't know what's in my bank account. I don't know how much money I have." It's going to make it really, really hard to make a good purchasing decision when you don't know how much you can afford or how much you have to spend. So first and foremost, a pre-approval will get that answered. Secondly, in a market where there's a lot of offers and there's low inventory, working quickly can be to your advantage. And I don't mean working quickly uh, like you're working hastily and recklessly. No, you can work quickly, but you can also work very calculated. And if you have a good agent and a good lender, those two things can go hand in hand. In fact, I've got buyers doing that right now. We're doing a 21-day escrow. We're doing 10 days for all contingencies. And guess what? We have all of our contingencies in place. Nothing's being rushed through. We're being very comprehensive and detail oriented. But because we're working with a good lender who knows what they're doing, we are able to work a little bit quicker. And actually, that's why we got the house. We were able to beat out 4 other offers because our terms were better than those other offers, i.e., we had shorter contingency periods and we also had a shorter escrow period, which the sellers found advantageous. Number 2, fixating on the house over the neighborhood. Sure, you want a home that checks off the items on your wish list and meets your needs. Buying purely based off a home's cosmetics, however, can be short-sighted if you're purchasing in a neighborhood you dislike or in an area that proves inconvenient, says Allison Bernstein, founder of Starter Ventures in New York City. So, a lot of people will say, "Oh, you know what? We found this beautiful house. It's redone. It's this beautiful craftsman home. It's been redone. It's been updated. It's amazing. It's totally turnkey, and we can move right in." But it's on a really, really busy street or a busy corner, or maybe it's not in the best neighborhood, or maybe the house is amazing, but it's in a school district that's terrible. And if you have kids in the future, now you have to figure out where you're going to send your kids to school, or maybe you have to pay for private school, and it's a whole thing. So you can't just fixate on the cosmetics of the house. You have to take into account what's around it. As my father-in-law told myself and my wife when we were looking at homes, you can't you always have to go outside of your house at some point. You're always going to have to leave your home. And when you leave your home, are you going to feel good about where you are? Whether that's even just walking from your house to the driveway, from the house to the park, or whatever it may be, at some point, you're going to need to leave your house and you need to feel comfortable doing so. So don't just fixate on the home. Number 3, waiting for the unicorn. Yep. Don't ever wait for the perfect home. If you think that you're just going to wait for the perfect home, what ends up happening is you spend so much time looking for the perfect home, you overlook all of the great homes that you could have secured. And the longer you wait, chances are the more money you're going to have to spend. And it's also going to be very fatiguing to have to continue to look for a home. The more rent you're going to have to pay in the meantime, all sorts of things. So you don't want to just say, "Hey, I have to have a house that has these things and I can't make any exceptions." You really need to find out what's truly important to you and what are the things that maybe are not quite as important to you. Make decisions based on emotion. This is an obvious one. Whenever you're buying anything, you want to try to look at the numbers, look rationally, look at the deal. Buying a house is a major life milestone. It's a place where you'll make memories, create a space that's truly yours, and put down roots. It's easy to get too attached and make impulsive decisions. So remember that you're also making one of the largest investments of your life. You have to be practical and never lose sight of your budget and long-term financial goals. We already talked about this a little bit, talking to only one lender. Don't do that. Don't just talk to the first person. Don't just walk into your bank and say, "I need a home loan. What can you do for me?" Talk to 3 or 4. It's going to be much better for you. You can negotiate your rate. If one lender gives you a low rate, but you like the other lender more, you can go back to the lender and say, "Hey, this lender is willing to do XXX%. If you can do XXX%, I'd rather go with you anyway." There you go. Now you've got some leverage. You've negotiated. You've saved yourself some money. Talk to more than one lender. Being careless with credit. Yep, credit's really important. It'll save you on the rate. Don't go out and buy a brand new car right before you buy a house. your credit score is important. Make sure that your credit score is in a good standing before you even go through the mortgage or pre-approval process. It's going to be much, much better for you. Overlooking FHA, VA, and USDA loans. Again, we kind of talked about this. FHA is a great option, especially if your credit's challenged, like maybe your credit's not amazing. FHA is usually a very good product for that. The VA and USDA loans are, again, very specific for VA. That's Veterans Affairs. You have to be a veteran of the United States military, one of the branches of the military, in order to utilize that loan. But it's a very, very good loan. 0% down. They're very, very good rates. It's a very good loan, and it should be. USDA, that's more for like your agriculture and your rural land sales. So a lot of homes aren't available for that, but that's also a very, very good loan option. Moving too fast. Buying a home can be a complex process, particularly when you get in the weeds of mortgage underwriting. Rushing the process can cost you later, says Nick Bush, a realtor with Keller Williams Realty in Rockville, Maryland. The biggest mistake that I see is to not plan far enough ahead for the purchase. Yeah, good point. You're just moving too fast. You're not quite ready to buy a home. That's one of the most important things, is being prepared and ready to buy the home. Don't just go out and buy one because you feel like everyone else is doing it, or because your parents told you need to, or because you feel like that's the best thing to do. You need to really examine it and see if it's the right thing based on your living situation and your budget. Buying more house than you can afford. Yep, like we saw in the last article, you should buy the cheapest house that makes you happy. That's a great, great, great rule of thumb. Draining your savings. Yeah, you never want to be house poor, right? If you have to spend all of your money to get into the house, that's not good. That's not good. You still want to have an emergency fund. That emergency fund, even after the down payment, all of the fees, escrow fees, your inspection fees, all that stuff, you still need to have at least 3 to 4 months of saved up expenses. That's the best thing that you can do. Put it in a high yield savings account, let it sit, let it grow, let it make some money for you. And then that way, if you do have an emergency, you're okay. Assuming you need a 20% down. This is a huge one. This is huge. The whole thing with 20% down, you have to have 20% down. That's a myth. That's a myth. You can put down as little as 3.5%. You can put down as much as 50 or 60 or 70%. You can put down more if you want, but you don't need 20%. In fact, the first home I bought, I only put 10% down. The second home I bought, I did put 20% down, but that's because I had equity out of the first home. Otherwise, I would have never been able to put 20% down on my second house. There would have been no way. So 20% down, it's a great number to hit. There's a couple different reasons, which I won't get into right now. 20% is a good number, but if you think to yourself, I have to save 20%, and you keep putting off buying a house because you think you have to get to 20%, that's really bad. I always tell people, you're better off getting into a home at maybe 10% down, or heck, even 5 or 8% down, than waiting and trying to get to 20%. Because as you wait, the price of that real estate is going to go up. We don't know what interest rates are going to do, the more rent that you're going to have to pay in the meantime. So usually, the sooner that you can buy, the better. Missing out on assistance programs. Yep, there's a lot of programs out there specifically for first-time home buyers, that if you are a first-time home buyer, you can get some assistance through the local government, through the federal government. They'll be able to give you perhaps some down payment assistance, grants, things like that. Also, if you're low income, there's also certain programs that are available to you there. That's also something that you should be asking your lender about. Don't ask your real estate agent about it. I mean, you can ask your real estate agent about it, and they might know, but it's really a better question for the lender. Whenever you have questions about down payment, money, interest rates, loans, mortgages, those are all lender related questions. When you have questions about property, houses, the neighborhood, comparables, what price you should pay, how to negotiate, that's all the real estate agent stuff. Number 13, not lining up gift money. Well, it's funny. Pretty much all major loan programs will allow you to use gift funds. So like if you've got a friend or family member that says, hey, I'll give you $10,000 for the down payment, you can do that. However, you need to let the lender know ahead of time because it needs to be documented properly. So not lining up gift money. Many loan programs allow you to use gift from a family, friend, or employer or charity toward your down payment. Not sorting out who will provide the money and when, though, can throw a wrench into loan approval. Obviously, it's really nice if you have this at your disposal, at your resources. Not everybody does have gift money, but if you do have gift money, you can definitely incorporate that. Tell your lender right away, hey, somebody's going to be giving me some money. Somebody's going to be contributing because they need to document it appropriately. Number 4, not negotiating a home buyer rebate. Many first-time home buyers are unfamiliar with the concept of home buyer rebates, also known as a commission rebate. These rebates can be up to 1% of the home sales price and come out of the buyer's agent commission. This is Ben Mises, co-founder and president of Clever Real Estate in St. Louis. Well, yeah, I mean, you can always try, you can always ask. What people need to realize is it's not the agent's discretion, it's the broker's discretion, right? So that commission is not the agent's. Even though the agent's going to get paid from it, the commission goes to the brokerage. Now, in the event that your agent is the broker, then it is under their purview. But like if clients came to me and said, "Hey, we want a rebate," I don't have the authority to say, "Okay, yeah, I can give it to you." I have to go back and talk to my brokers and tell them why, and there better be a pretty good reason for it. But it all depends. Also, a lot of the times you can negotiate with the seller directly to give you some type of rebate or credit, specifically towards closing costs. That's a pretty common one that I'm able to get from my clients. Usually, you can get them, $1, $2, $3 back in closing costs, but it all depends on the situation, all depends on the scenario and the property. Number 15, ignoring moving and other upfront costs. Yes, this is important. You will spend money. You will spend money moving. You will spend money furnishing the home. You will spend money doing things. Even though if you think we're not spending any money, we're not buying any new furniture, we're not doing anything, we're moving ourselves, there's still going to be costs associated with that. Excuse me. There still will be costs associated with that. So it's really, really important that you keep that in mind, that the first month or so of owning a house, of buying a house, there are going to be costs. And you might, have experienced that like the first time you moved out, when you went from your parents' house and you got your first rental, and you think, okay, great, I've got enough to make rent. And then you're like, oh crap, I need to buy silverware and plates and dishes and bowls. Okay, well, now you got to go out to, whatever Target or 99-cent store and buy that stuff. And it might not cost an arm and a leg, but it's still money that you got to pay. Similar thing happens when you buy a house. There just will be things that will require more funds. So you need to be prepared for that. And number 16, overlooking the hidden costs of home ownerships. And we don't need to get into this one because this was basically the entire last week's stream. So if you're just joining us now, the stream last week was great. It was about the hidden costs of home ownership, basically pertaining to insurance. And it might have been 2 weeks ago now that I think about it. But there's a stream where I talk about home ownership and property taxes and homeowners insurance and how those costs can really change, and they can affect how much you have to pay and how much you're on the hook for, and what you need to think about when you're buying a property to account for those costs, right? So just 16 quick steps that you can take to hopefully, prepare yourself and avoid some of the mistakes that lead to these home buyer regret or remorse scenarios. Like I said, it's never good when people, regret the homes that they buy. That's obviously not what we want, but sometimes things happen, and like one of the articles said, sometimes you don't make the perfect decision, you make just an okay decision. But hopefully some of these tips will help you on your home buying journey. Isaac, hey, I'm glad you enjoyed it. If you need a link to the article, let me know. I'm happy to send it to you, and I'll send you both of these links. Like I said, one's from Bankrate, the other's from Washington Post. And if you like the stream, this is a great time. Isaac, thanks for the thumbs up. If you like the stream, please go ahead, hit that like button down below, and drop a comment. Let me know where you're watching from, and consider subscribing to the channel. It helps me out. It doesn't cost you anything. I go live once a week from this channel, and we're always talking about real estate stuff. So if anybody has any thoughts about the articles or any questions about the articles, let me know. Pop your comments down there into the chat, and I'll be happy to kind of go over it. While you guys are getting kind of your last few comments in and I know that while you guys, I'm going to give you some time to like the stream and subscribe to the channel. If there's any other topics in the future that you guys want me to cover, I'm always open to your suggestions. So let me know. Are you, tips on selling a house? Are you, worried about what the market's going to do? More tips on home buying. Are you looking at a specific property and you want another opinion on it? Maybe, you found one on Zillow, but you don't know if it's worth pursuing. Bring it over here, drop it into the chat. I'm happy to give you my professional advice on what I think about the house. In fact, we had a great segment in last week's stream where we were talking about properties that were overpriced, how to spot overpriced properties, and how to not have an overpriced property if you're a seller. I just want to say thanks for everybody that's hanging out. We had good viewership this stream. And again, if you guys like the stream, do me a favor, hit the like button right down below. It should be like right down there somewhere, probably. I don't know, somewhere down here. Hit that like button, hit the thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe, turn those notifications on. Like I said, I only go live once a week, so I'm not going to bombard you with notifications. I hope you guys all enjoyed the stream. Thanks for hanging out for about 70 minutes with me on this fine Wednesday evening. I hope the rest of your week goes beautifully, and I'll see you back here next week at 6:30 for another stream. And have a good week. I'll see you all then. Bye.